Hi everyone, my name is James Feeney. Welcome to or back to my channel. Today I am here to do a VR to the lovely Nina at Shuffle Tarot. She just released a video. I believe the hashtag is entitled What I Do for Me and My Environment. If I got that wrong, the hashtag will be attached to this video so you guys can see that. Essentially what she spoke on was self-care, but also acts and things that she does for the environment and awareness for having an impact on the environment as human beings and living beings who consume and use things. So there was a self-care aspect to it as well. I am not going into this with a list or anything specific to talk about, at least not in an orderly fashion. I have some things in mind, and I encourage you all to go check out her video. I found it to be really lovely and beautiful and refreshing, and I think that she is very aware and attuned to her environment, and that's really wonderful. I think that there's something inspirational about that for me. I don't think that I am quite on her level as far as what I do and my awareness for my environment and myself in terms of my environment, but I'd like to get there. And in doing so, I do not think I'm perfect. I'm going to be sharing a few things that I think that I do or that I do, and hopefully they can offer some inspiration to you guys. And yeah, I think that's it. So I'll just get right into it. I think that where I wanted to start and the only area that I brought an object in to talk about was, and I don't know why I thought of this, but the products that I use on myself, and this would be, I guess, thinking more in terms of self-care, but I do use all natural products. Sorry, just picking them up off the floor. I use all natural products, and they're from a company called the Brooklyn Herborium. So they're in Brooklyn, New York, and almost all of their products come in nice glass bottles. There's very low amount of plastic, even the dropper part is glass, and they're meant to be easily recycled. And so they all come in these glass bottles. They're more of a holistic healing center. All of them are made from hand-grown ingredients, where they have workshops where people can come in and volunteer to learn about creating environmentally healthy and natural products for themselves, and then in turn, one, they're learning how to create products, and two, they get to go home with some of the products. So it is more of a volunteer experience. I've never done that, but I have gone to them for facials. And here I'm just trying to show the products. This is an oil cleanser, so I only cleanse my face with an oil, and I actually only I would do this only at night, and then in the morning I would just splash water on my face. So I do that as my cleanser, and then I would follow it up with this mineral water, which is really just a water infused with minerals and a little bit of oil, and this one's for sensitive skin, which I have. And as a moisturizer, I just combine this oil, which is primarily jojoba oil, with a few other things in it. There's only a handful of ingredients in any of these. You can easily read them. There's nothing that you wouldn't understand, which is nice. I mean, they're making it by hand. There's not even preservatives, which a lot of even natural and green things have some form of preservative so that they last. These you have to use relatively quickly so that they don't go bad. And I would just put a few drops of this oil in my hand, spray it with this, and that's my my moisturizer. Likewise for shaving, I use a shaving oil, and this is just a thicker mix of oils that has antibacterial properties along with sort of lubricants for the razor so it doesn't scratch you. And then this is one that I would use for any area that there's maybe broken skin or an area that's inflamed. This is very calming and disinfectant, and it smells really good. So these are the various products that I use. I think it also cuts down on my water usage because I'm not having to use an excessive amount of water for my self-care. I use different products. I didn't bring many of my body and hair products in. Those I'm not as fussed about. I'd like to get better about at least the packaging and the ingredients in there, but those are ones that I use more so for my skin, which is also an area that's just very sensitive for me. And as somebody who has very sensitive skin that breaks out very easily and often, those are products that I find work for me the best. and they were what really worked for me when I was going through really bad bouts of acne not too long ago, and going to that center for facials. One had me reevaluate the way that I eat. They go through a dietary plan for you, which also, again, I think influenced me environmentally. They have that in mind with their whole, I guess, ethos of the brand. So it made me evaluate what I was eating and cooking more and saving things and saving on food waste. So I guess some areas that I would say I try to help the environment is in preparing my own food and saving food and not contributing to food waste. Likewise, I try to use, of course, just plates and utensils that aren't disposable. I try to use water containers that aren't disposable, like water bottles. Most water bottles can be recycled at most once because of the integrity, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've read and heard, the integrity of that type of plastic can't be recycled multiple times because it breaks down in the heating process, the chemical composition. Likewise, at least in the United States, a lot of the way that we recycle isn't very effective, and we don't sort our groups of different types of recyclables very well compared to other areas of the world. So they aren't being recycled properly. We aren't cleaning them out to the extent that they need to be in order to be recycled. So they wind up as trash anyway. So I really try to just cut down on the waste overall, because I know that there's a lot that goes into the recycling process that doesn't actually work out, as far as I know. So I try to keep that in mind when I'm doing things and just contribute the least amount of waste possible. I like to think that I have gotten a lot better with my water usage and just turning it on quickly for, say, like my toothbrush, or right when I'm about to get into the shower, as opposed to letting it heat up for a long time. There's also the way that I go about my routine, which uses a bit less water now, which is nice. So I have that. I guess I'll give a little bit of a shout out, and I know these two, well, they're my friends, and I know that they are subscribed to this channel. So Michelle and Julie, if you are watching this, two of my close friends, they are big inspirations to me as far as the environment goes and my impact there. A lot of the time I actually have them in the back of my mind when I'm making decisions, and that's really nice. They both are very conscientious and make very wise choices, and are far beyond where I'm at as far as their impact goes and the difference that they're making. So Michelle and Julie, thank you for your friendship and also just the role that you play as an inspiration for me in my everyday life. So that's wonderful, and I try to just be wary. I think I've stopped shopping from fast fashion a lot more, which is helpful. I know that a lot of the emissions caused are from, yes, it's important for us to make wise choices as people, but ultimately a lot of the emissions come from big companies and what it is that they're producing and the products that they're using, the waste that they give off, the gases, etc. So actually the majority of the waste in the world is created by them, and that's not to say that we don't make a difference. I think we should make wise choices and make wise choices in our purchases, because when we are giving money and buying from those companies that are contributing heavily to the waste, we are fueling them, and the more that we buy, it keeps them in business. It makes them think that these actions and proceedings are okay. So I'm not perfect, but I do like to think that sometimes I try to be mindful in what brands I'm buying from and how they interact with the environment. I mean, I'm wearing, say, this Levi's shirt, and Levi's, I would say, is maybe a fast fashion brand to some extent, but I took actually an environmental marketing class in college. It had nothing to do with my major, but I took it, and I did actually a small report on Levi's, and they've been improving, and they had a lot in terms of the fabrics that they were using, cutting down on the water waste and using kind of a cleaner, less costly energy process in the manufacturing of their products, and where they are actually sourcing the labor and all that goes into that. So there are some brands that are at least trying or doing something, so I try to keep that in mind. Likewise, I like to shop secondhand a lot and try not to get rid of my garments when I don't need to, or shop for more than I need to. and I will also try to move things along that I'm not wearing to people who might actually wear them and benefit from them, as opposed to just throwing them out in some way. And then I would say, yeah, just shopping used thrift at Goodwill or secondhand shops. It's fun because you find some really unique pieces that way as well, which I enjoy. Breathing new life. I like old things and vintage things, so it kind of is a win-win there. I'm trying to think. I would like to say that I contribute a lot as far as keeping plants. I know Nina has a wonderful garden that she's shared on her channel, and she has quite the green thumb, and she's very good with plants. I like to try. I think I've killed a fair amount of plants that I have tried to care for, but I've actually gotten better, and I think that there are some that I have that have been doing really well. It's now very early March, but I am getting seeds to start an herb garden in my backyard, which I'm excited for. My dad and I really want to go about doing that. He has some things that he wants to grow. He wants to grow certain vegetables so that he can actually eat them, and I want to grow certain spices and herbs for, well, metaphysical use, but also some that are edible and can be used on various things. And I think that that'll be a really great just experience. Not that we're doing so much for the environment in creating those things. I'm sure we'll still purchase a lot of items, but I think the mindset it engenders is really beneficial. So I like to think that that's something. I'm trying to think what else. There are a lot of times when I make a lot of mistakes, and I think that part of me making this video was to get myself in a better mindset in going about my day-to-day and making a more conscious effort. I think it's a lot of little choices that amount to larger scale things. I think it's doing research and being mindful, like I said, with the companies that really contribute to a lot of what is going on. I would say the influence we can exude over that aspect of it is just in being conscious consumers and not, say, giving our money over and fueling the brands that are responsible for really environmentally damaging impacts. So that's a big way that we can do that. And then on the small scale where we are concerned, being conscientious of our waste, reusable products, making the most of things, minimizing our footprint as far as water usage goes, and all these other things. To add to that, I think just being very in touch or having this relationship, forming a relationship with the environment. I like to, especially when it's warmer out, on almost every single day of the week, if I have time, I will try to get outside. I'm fortunate to have I live close to the beach, which is one thing. Although I'm not a big beach goer, I like to go really at dawn and dusk, sometimes even at night, and I'll walk on the beach. I like to go for nature walks at parks near me, and there are a lot of cool trails. So that's fun, and I like to just get out into nature. I'll sometimes stop and just sit still, meditate, really try to take in what the feeling and the environment around me, really get a sense for the cycles. I think that's something I've been good at in the past year, understanding and feeling, almost really feeling that cooling when it hits fall, and the way that the earth responds, and the warming. And I think if we are in tune with that, it makes us more sensitive to, say, disturbances. Nina talked a bit about how in the summer she's been experiencing cold bouts in her area that aren't normal, and I think that if we are going about our lives in a way that isn't very connected to nature, if we aren't taking time to form a relationship and a respect and understand that we are also a part of that cycle, if we think and believe ourselves to be outside of it and don't interact with it, we aren't as affected or aware of changes. So if I were to say not go out and involve myself in nature and care about it at all, I might not really even notice the fact that we had such a mild winter, and that it's a bit warm for this time of year, and that the plants really came back much earlier than they probably should have, and that they got a bit confused and started to sprout early. And that's not quite normal, I think. So just if we were all kind of in a position where we were so aware of these things, I think we'd all have this collective mindset that could stand behind making larger changes more easily. That's not to say that I'm better than anybody else and that there's so many people that choose not to be aware or ignorant to these things. I think that life gets busy, and for many years and at many times I feel like I'm very out of touch, and when I'm out of touch I don't even realize that I am. So yeah, just being sort of an active participant and somebody who is aware of the fact that we are part of the natural world and that it's not a separate entity from us, and that our actions have consequences. Likewise, whatever's going on in the natural world is going to affect us, and that we do rely upon it in its entirety for our well-being and life. So there's that. And I think that that's about it. Again, I really recommend you guys go and check Nina's out. I think she has a lot of really interesting thoughts and insights, and she just seems so sensitive and connected to nature. And it's been an inspiration for me to, one, have heard her speak on this topic and start this VR, which I think is great. Likewise, just the way that she goes about all of her videos is somewhat connected, and the empathetic nature just is nice to sort of to experience and to maybe learn from and to take into other avenues of life, especially the environment, which we're talking about here. So thank you so much, Nina. And I encourage you guys to, if you're out there and you're a content creator, maybe respond to Nina's VR as well. If not, I'd love to know certain tips and tricks and things that you do for the environment down below, and just your thoughts on the environment and a self-care sort of aspect, so that symbiotic relationship we have. So I encourage that dialogue. But until next time, oh yeah, and like and subscribe if this is something you enjoyed, or if you enjoy my videos. Yeah, and until next time, bye guys.